When it comes to our schools, do we want the radical ideology into our classroom that pushes gender theory, that pushes graphic pornography in order to perform a social experiment on our kids? Or do we want the U.S. Constitution? Do we want documents like the Federalist Papers and the Bible so that our kids understand our history and how our government was put together? Those core fundamental principles that have made us the greatest country in the history of the world. Real Americans know that we've got to support our kids by giving them a great understanding of our history. Radical leftists in the Biden administration, they would prefer to sexualize our kids.
Who are these people? And where did they come from? It's almost as if this opinion has been lurking in the shadows for years and Donald Trump just kind of awoke all of these people. These people are woke for all of the wrong reasons. This guy is the state superintendent of public instruction in Oklahoma, Ryan Walters, a former history teacher himself, taught for 8 years in high schools in Oklahoma. And here he is now in charge of all public education in Oklahoma, and he has an extremist, far-right Christian nationalist view which he wants to impose on everybody, you know? Forget the separation of church and state. This guy has got his own agenda, and he wants to push it onto all children, no matter what their denomination, no matter what their parents' political persuasion. This is the future for Republican leadership. And to hold up the Federalist Papers from 1787 as the kind of bastion of reading for children in schools instead of books that were actually written for them. Removing books from shelves, replacing them with the Bible. The Bible? You want to hold the Bible up as a kind of historical reference document? The beheading of John the Baptist, or bears attacking children, or the gruesome deaths, or stonings, or slavery, or misogyny, or human sacrifice. It's all in the Bible. Dismemberment, and incest, and cannibalism, and infant death, and even genocide. I mean, is that what you would rather children read because it's the Bible? You really have to question the motive of these individuals, because I'm certain that they know that this is a political play. I'm certain that they know that they are actually harming children, whether it be children with gender dysmorphia. You know, that there is no sex assigned at birth. Your gender is something that you come to terms with through your adolescence. It's not a choice. It's what you were given by God or whatever you choose to believe. And consequently, you can't pray away the gay with young people and then expect you're going to have this perfect society of Christian nationalist Republican voters. Is that what he's trying to do? The problem with this kind of political division is that facts are irrelevant. The truth is irrelevant to people like this Oklahoman superintendent of schools, because it's all politics now. He's just pushing a political narrative, pretending that Biden is part of some kind of pedophile ring, playing into this insane narrative, trying to convince people that the only way is this kind of extremist and far-right conservative or MAGA Republican way. And tragically, that is not just not the way of the US, because the US is a majority progressive, intelligent, thoughtful, educated country, but also the rest of the world. And, you know, the rest of the world does not operate the way that Oklahoma operates, or any of these states that are increasingly shifting to the far right. And this kind of Christian nationalist attitude that bears no resemblance to America as a whole. And look to Europe, and look to Scandinavia, or look to any of these countries, these kind of westernized countries that are so far and ahead of the US, not just in terms of freedom, true freedom, and civil liberties and human rights, but also they understand the threat of climate change. They understand that a pandemic is a real thing and lives can be saved with simple things like giving people the choice to wear a mask. But by changing the narrative, by lying to the electorate, by kind of rewriting history, and claiming that the Federalist Papers and the Bible are what your child needs to get a kind of balanced diet, and that gender dysphoria doesn't exist, or that young people are not going to grow up and want to think for themselves. Maybe they might want to vote something other than Republican. I mean, who knows? But the point is that their description of freedom bears no resemblance to the kind of freedom that is going on in the rest of the world. And he talks about America being the greatest country in the world. Well, people are questioning that with people like him around, because it can only be the greatest country in the world if it is truly free. And free means that young people can make decisions for themselves, and they can choose what books they want to read, and they can choose what gender they know they are, without being told by adults that their feelings are invalid. So we have a choice, don't we? We can either choose to celebrate true freedom and live as a modern progressive society allows us, where we are truly free to make decisions, women making decisions about their own bodies and their own access to health care, and not having old white men make decisions on their behalf, because really this is just about control. This is a form of repression and slavery. This is men enslaving women and deciding their fate. And this is 2023 in the United States of America, a country that is increasingly losing the title of greatest country in the world because it does not give its citizens freedom. It does not give them the freedoms they enjoyed just a few years ago. And so when we look at the inspector of schools or the superintendent of schools in Oklahoma, when we look at Ron DeSantis in Florida, preaching around not just his state, but around the United States, this kind of extremist view that is actually not the view of the majority of Americans. Poll after poll says that Americans ultimately want women to have the right to choose, that they are entitled to live in a free society, not the society that is increasingly being dictated by MAGA Republicans. Two completely different Americas. You have to decide which one you want to live in. I'm Anthony Davis. You can hear me every day on the 5-Minute News podcast and on Sundays on The Weekend Show with Midas Touch.